our skin is receiving constantly. And so when we're washing, it's like also creating that energetic vibration of nourishment, of purification. So you are in connection with Gaia, with Mother Earth and her abundant offerings. And that helps us to stay nourished and powerful in our own vibration.
Welcome to the Seeing in the Dark podcast, the podcast for new ways of leading and doing business. No more separation between money, power, and leadership, and being a deeply spiritual human being. Seeing in the Dark is about walking paths that have not been walked before and truly making a change in a world in which old ways are crumbling. My name is Nicole Nyima Costerus, CEO of a multiple six-figure soul-based business, and here to take you into the mysteries of purpose, power, intuition, and soul-based leadership. May you embody your own unique essence so deeply that your vibration naturally teaches, inspires, and assists others. Let's dive in. Welcome everyone to this week's episode. I am super grateful that I'm sitting here with a very dear friend of mine, Mystery Anaha. And Mystery and I met around 6 or 7 years ago. And since then, life just kept on bringing us together. We met in over 6 different countries, and half of them we didn't plan it. Like, I remember one of those moments, me being in Mexico, coming out of my 12-day dark retreat and just enjoying my first sunset. Yeah, enjoying my first sunset after my dark retreat. And I looked to the left and Mystery is standing right next to me. And I didn't even know that she was in Mexico, and let alone be right next to me in the exact same town that I was in that moment. So somehow we are meant to be together in life, meant to be co-creating and be friends together. And Mystery, I'm super grateful for you being here today with us to talk about ritual baths and ceremonial washings. I welcome you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Mystery is an earth medicine keeper and a mystic mentor, and she also has her own apothecary. It's such a difficult word for me in English, but you make your own herbal medicines. And I actually have a few here at home, and I really love them. One of them is your rose water, and I've been experiencing actually quite a beautiful range of your creations with the plants. So I can't wait to dive in. But first, I just want to say, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to speak about my passion around plants and the beautiful guardians they are to our path, they are to our health, they are to our spiritual evolution. Post-integration of my dietas, I just spent half a year in South America deepening my studies in dietas with my maestro and also with different maestras in the Andes, learning deeper the ancient ways, the native ways on how to work with plants for the benefit of our path and our health.
Beautiful. So my first curiosity, Mystery, is you call yourself an earth medicine keeper. Can you share a bit more about what that means to you?
So to me, like to be a keeper, it's like being a portal keeper to the wisdom of specific plant medicines and animals medicines that I'm working with. So for me, that describes in a very beautiful and humble and respectful way that I'm really just a keeper for their wisdom to be revealed in safe spaces that I'm holding and stewarding so people can fully open, trust, and surrender to the guidance of specific plants, such as ayahuasca or San Pedro, or other beautiful animal medicines like cambo and bufo.
And I have been experiencing your work also with ayahuasca. You've been serving me kambo. Yeah, I don't know you any other way than with your deep love for the plants and the medicines. And I feel curious, has it always been like this? Have plants always been a part of your life? Or how did this medicine come to you?
I remember I always had a fascination about the rose. And she's one of my main sinchis. And sinchi is a very beautiful word and that we use in the jungle when we diet, because a sinchi is some plant spirit that we connect very deeply with. in such a way through the form of a dieta or more, it becomes our sinchi. So the rose always, without knowing it, because it was a very intuitive and innocent connection that I formed with the rose, she always has been my sinchi, my guardian, my guide, stewarding and maneuvering me in my ways. Like when I went to church when I was a little girl, I would always smell the roses. I would always stop to smell every flower, actually. So my connection was kind of limited, because I was brought up in the city. And then when I started traveling, I always got fascinated with the variety of like flowers and herbs that I would find. But actually only until 8.5 years ago, when I suffered a very deep trauma, my healing path guided me to the lands of South America. And so it was actually in South America 8.5 years ago that my devotion to work with plant medicines, with animal medicines, and to study herbs and flowers and healing preparations and washes and tinctures in a deeper way. That is what I'm doing today. So that really, in the way that I'm doing it now, like started for me 8.5 years ago with studying the native wisdoms and preparations on the sacred lands of South America.
So do you remember why specifically the native South American tradition was calling you so strongly? Because there are so many, right? There's so many different traditions that work with the medicine of the herbs and the plants. So why the native South American tradition?
Well, I really believe in the cartography of our soul, right? I really feel that like when we incarnate, we have a blood lineage. So we are born, and I was born in Germany. So I have like German blood and some French and some others. And I really believe that we also have a soul lineage. So my soul cartography like guided me to South America, because in a moment of deep despair and deep trauma, I asked my soul as a last plea and urge, how can I heal myself? Like, how can I reclaim life? And it was a voice very, very clearly that said South America. And I remember when I was a little girl and I used to look at the world map, I always saw this lake, Titicaca. And I was like, wow, one day, like I kept on looking at the map of my grandparents' place. And I was like, one day I have to go there. And it was actually on the Titicaca Lake that I found one of my deepest activations and healing in my entire life. And me as a little girl, like knew it since back then. So I feel like it wasn't really a conscious choice where I was saying like, oh, I'm not interested in the North American shamanism. I'm not interested in the Druid, the Celtic way. Like, in fact, I'm interested in studying like all wisdom traditions, but like what feels most natural to my being, to my soul, and where I feel most resonance and most reception is in South America, and specifically Peru and Brazil. Like have been like my main openings, like where I studied very deeply with different maestros. And so it was something that I feel was calling me back into power, because my soul really came home and really arrived when I started living and studying with the tribes in South America.
Do you remember what those first tribe or the first tradition was when you started your studies?
I actually ended up with the Sachilas. They live in Ecuador. I had heard about the sacred medicine of ayahuasca before, and where I was in Berlin, like many of my friends started drinking with different traditions, and I always felt it was something that I had to experience at the root of the medicine. So when I was devoted in my journey to heal my trauma and to like really integrate some of the aspects that has suffered from initiatory processes in my life, let's put it like that, the medicine was calling me when I was on the land in Ecuador. I went to this tribe that I heard of. And actually when I arrived, like the shaman, the main chief of the tribe, had a vision of a white woman that would be arriving on the new moon 8.5 years ago to sit with him in the plea and in the urge of sacred healing. So one day later, after I arrived to the tribe, I found myself sitting with the shaman and his 2 sons that were apprenticing with him. And it was the deepest opening for me. Like I can clearly remember a couple of moments in my life where I was reborn and like a new life chapter clearly started. And for me, ayahuasca was a real rite of passage. I can see a life before ayahuasca and after ayahuasca. And so this was actually my initiation, because the sacred way, or the native way, is you drink and then you're in a dieting process. Yeah. So you receive flower baths before the ceremony. You receive flower baths after the ceremony. So it kind of all opened then with my first ceremony. And so I was with the Sachilas, and then I was with different native traditions in Peru, especially in the high Andes, where many curanderos around the region of Laguna Chimbe are gathering. It's one of the most sacred spots in the Andes, in the high Andes in Peru. And I remember I again got called. So I pilgrimed 4 days in different buses and cars, and then on a mule to this sacred lake in the middle of nowhere. And I found a maestro there that I had my first San Pedro ceremony with. So life always used to guide me in such ways. So I would end up with very, very beautiful, integral guides that opened me in a very respectful and beautiful way.
So you're sharing that your ayahuasca has been a rite of passage for you. And I love that you used this exact term, because I'm actually currently in the process of launching Rites of Passage together with Sia Huheka, which is a 4-week program where we guide and initiate the participants into this rites of passage of death and rebirth. So we're talking and teaching about the 3 stages of transformation, which the first stage is the death. And as I'm hearing you speak about your life before ayahuasca and after ayahuasca, I feel curious if you want to share a bit about this rites of passage. So when we teach about this in the program, we talk about the first stage of transformation is truly letting go of an old identity. And the second stage being the liminal space, the unknown, and the uncertainty that we can feel about who we are or where we are going. And then the third stage being the new coming in, the rebirth happening, right? And the stage that we cannot force, but where life determines when we are ready for that rebirth. Just like the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and from the cocoon, the butterfly is being born. So I feel curious if you feel open to share a bit about that process or that rite of passage that you went through, where you're naming your life before ayahuasca and after ayahuasca.
For me, the rite of passage that I went through was from naivety and innocence into being initiated into my power, my sovereignty, and the path of Dharma. So it was a very, very big rite of passage, because the way and the path that I'm walking today has opened back then. And I feel what was a very beautiful experience for me in taking this year away from Berlin, taking this year away from Germany, where I used to live at that time, it helped me to completely let go of my identity, because it was a year away from home. I turned my phone off. I didn't know how to speak Spanish when I arrived there. And I used to travel only by hitchhiking and only via couch surfing. So I would completely get absorbed in the culture and in the traditions that surrounded me. And I actually found myself speaking with shamans about deep, deep wisdom after only 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because the way that I got initiated into their culture was so beyond words. It opened my ability to speak and relate in Spanish in such a rapid way. So it really helped me, that complete letting go and disconnection, but most importantly, giving myself permission to completely free fall into being molded in a way that I knew I was awaited to be. And I feel often with these rite of passages that we are being forced by life, or that we can specifically call upon, it's always time. Yeah. And the more space we have to allow ourselves the falling apart, the more we can support ourselves and really letting go to what we know we have been. So when people come on my initiation journeys, and I don't call them retreats because they don't leave in the same way. And it's really not a holiday that they're on when they come anyway. What I always ask, and I do one-on-one interviews with everyone, and I say, okay, so what is really important for me is that your willingness to meet yourself in a complete new way and to integrate who you are afterwards. And when I feel and I say no to people that they won't be able to join because I feel they don't have the capacity to integrate such a big shift in their life. And for me, working with the native wisdom and to work with medicinal plants, with power animals, there comes a very big shift. And I feel the capacity of being able to completely let go. Yeah? And I think Aristoteles, he said, you cannot heal someone if he or she is not ready to let go of what makes her or he sick. Yeah? So this is, I feel like, such a beautiful understanding of like, you know, we can call out for healing, we can call for rite of passage, but is the person that is like calling for rite of passage, longing for that shift in their life, actually really ready to let go of who they were before? Because they're really not going to be the same person anymore. And I feel that jump, like to have the space, yeah, to have like the emotional, the energetic, the physical space to integrate such a profound shift is priceless, because it changes everything. When we allow ourselves to give us this space that our soul is yearning for, wow.
Beautiful. So what would you say are some of the 2 or maybe 3 things that helped you the most to integrate such a big change? Because I can really relate with what you're saying. One example for me, the most recent one, was my initiation into African voodoo in this January, where I came out a completely different person than the one who went into the initiation. And in such a way that I think people can often have the idea that when they turn into a completely different person, that they become someone else further away from themselves. But of course, the completely different person that we become is someone so much closer to who we truly are, right? Yet it can feel really scary because I needed to get to know myself in my feeling like completely all over again. You know, like things I wanted to do with my business were completely different. The way I was in my relationship was completely different. The way I was seeing myself or relating with myself was completely different. Like even my body was feeling different. My bones in my body were feeling different. So it was a process of getting to know myself all over again. And I feel curious, in your death and rebirth process, what helped you the most in integration?
I feel what my initiation journey through shamanism and curanderismo really has taught me is an unshakable root and faith into God, into the goddess, and into the great spirit, or Wakamtanka, the great mystery, in whichever way you want to put it, because I know that everything and life is happening for me. So I know that nothing actually that is happening in my life is against me. Yeah? So everything is helping me in the cosmovision that I hold for life. Everything is happening for me so I can be of greatest service. So I can share my prayers, so I can share my word. So I started seeing, especially 8.5 years ago, where there was a very big cut from the life I had to the life I'm living now. I understood that even the deepest trauma we experienced in our life, when we can trust into the will, into the way of the Creator, combined with our devotion to create offerings, to speak our prayers for the life that we would like to lead, it's all just a big activation. So every death is making more space for the true me. And so for me, like what I always share in my retreats is like that we're not becoming anybody. I'm not helping anyone to become anyone. What I'm doing is like I'm creating spaces of unbecoming. So we're actually letting go of the narratives of our existence. Yeah, the story that we hold about our upbringing, the story that we held about our ancestral lineage, about the cultural contradictions to what we truly it is that we want. And so when we unbecome these things, and I feel that trauma and like really, like those forced invitations of life that are initiating you into a next stage of consciousness and to relate to life, to relate to oneself. So for me, it really helps me to have found that trust, because I have overcome such deep trauma and wounds in my life's journey. And I'm seeing this in my work and my one-on-one work and my group containers, where people come with these burdens and they feel heavy when actually they ignite this faith in themselves and their capacity to meet life in the way that isn't determined by victimhood consciousness, and truly empower themselves by remembering that they're children of the divine goddess themselves. Everything changes, because I feel one of the most primal wounding, and this is something that plants really help with, is like to return into the womb of the mother. Because Mother Earth, Pachamama, she provides everything for our healing. So when we return to her wisdom, when we pray at her altar, we are being given very abundantly. And we need those moments of change. We need these moments of trauma, because those are the ones that are guiding our alignment and direction, which we might have not been able to see or feel or be beforehand.
Just a short break from the episode to let you know that my dear friend Sia Huheka and myself have opened registration to our brand new 4-week initiation journey, Rites of Passage. This is a 4-week initiation to learn ritual and ceremony for a deep transformation for your personal and professional life. In other words, a program where you will learn different types of rituals from different ancient traditions and learn how to weave that together with the power of your own intuition and inner guidance. We will take you into mythology, into ritual baths and ceremonial washings, into candle magic, intention oils, sacred ritual, and the power of rites of passage, in this case death and rebirth, meaning we go into rituals that help you to truly let go of an old identity that you've been holding on to, how to navigate the unknown in times of uncertainty, and how to make space for new rebirths that want to happen in yourself and in the life of others. As I said, we believe that when ritual comes back into our culture, into our communities, that we no longer have to go through our transformations all by ourselves, but that we can actually go through transformation together. This is what many cultures still have today, that space where you go together from important transitions in your life. So Rites of Passage is a celebration of that. And if you want to bring ritual and ceremony more into your personal and professional life, bring it into your communities, your families, in relationship with your children, then Rites of Passage is the right initiation journey for you. You can find all information below this episode, and we warmly welcome you into Rites of Passage starting on the 3rd of July. Much love. Back to the episode now. I love it so much, and I relate with it so much. And I think also this trust is also something that builds over time more and more and more, right? Because I remember like the first, like maybe around 2014, when I made this promise to myself to only follow my intuition, only follow where life guides me in each moment, even if it scares the shit out of me. I would start with very small things. And as I was practicing that, the trust would build, and I would dare to make bigger leaps or, bigger decisions from that place. And I really relate also with what you share about knowing that life is always working for us, even if it's the most painful situation that comes our way, it's always there to liberate us into more of who we are. And I love how you say unbecoming, because who we truly are or meant to be is already ingrained within our bones and in our blueprint. It's already here. So it's about taking those layers off that are not truly us, and more of us becomes available. And I think there's one more for me, and then I really want to ask you more about the ritual baths, because that's also what we're here for. And I feel we can make like a whole sequence and talk about so many juicy things. But one of the things that I needed, and I feel curious if that's the same for you as well, is to become comfortable with discomfort. Because for me, like to keep choosing where life is guiding me, And to keep like integrating also the growth and the expansion that I'm going through each time, I needed to learn to become comfortable with discomfort, because that dying and being rebirthed again over and over again for me came with a lot of discomfort and insecurities or doubts or old stuff that wanted to release my body. And to find a sense of trust also in that, all that discomfort that comes up in the process, really helped my process of integration as well.
I can really relate to that. And something combined with that happened for me was the power of prayer. So the more I am in the discomfort, the more my prayers used to soar in greater heights, because it was my way of like still being able to hold both poles, right? Because when we're in these like excruciating, like rebirthing processes, and there's so much discomfort with so much in the body.
Yes.
And so like sometimes it can feel really, really dense. And it is really that seed in the dark earth, you know, that is like making her way like up to the light, you know, and like being unfolded in who we are after that transformation. And I feel something that helped me was like maintaining like my vertical access to the heart of the skies. So in great discomfort, I found very much comfort in praying. So I used to pray with my body, through working with the plants, through dancing. And I love what you shared about that commitment and that promise you made to yourself about listening to your intuition, because I see that these prayers and these self-commitments are also rite of passages. So when we commit to that, this is our new path, it is that torch of consciousness that is lighting our way in that direction. So I feel when we are in that discomfort, in that like huge, like in between stage, and it's always like, oh yeah, the butterfly is out, and then, you know, metamorphosis is over. Sometimes that chrysalis state, like that state, that liminal space, can be a long time, you know. Like I found myself in a process for half a year, okay, and I'm just coming out of it. So in that half year of discomfort, what really helped me were my prayers. So it's not only becoming for me comfortable with the discomfort, but also finding my way of like holding my alignment and holding my trust into the skies and into my guides. Yes. So I totally agree. And I love prayer because it just sweetens up like every life experience that we have.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that in as well. So let's move to what we are here for today, because there's so many beautiful things that we can talk about. But I was specifically feeling drawn to talk with you about ritual bathing and ceremonial washings. And I heard already in your first story in Ecuador, you were sharing you received flower baths before you went into the ceremony and flower baths when you came out of them. And my first introduction was this January in my initiation into African voodoo, because I was receiving herbal baths and ceremonial washings every single day during my initiation there. And I just feel curious about your journey with the ceremonial washings and the ritual bathings.
For me, like, it was relatively from the start of my journey with South American shamanism and curanderismo, because it is something that is part of the work. Like, you don't do a ceremony without it. So like ritual wash is not only part of ceremony, but it is also a normal aspect of life. And I recently came up with this quite tacky but very handy way to actually look at ritual wash, because it sounds like, wow, ritual washings, like some people are like, oh, I never did that. And then I recently explained, like, it's actually spiritual hygiene, because ritual bath is like, we are surrounded by so much energy. People are not only ritualizing the entry into a ceremony, which is so you come clean to the altar to pray and to receive, but they're also understood that whatever is happening around us, the people that we're moving with, the conversations that we're having, the arguments that we're having, the journeys that we're doing, all is energy, right? And wherever we're kind of have weak parts and spots in our aura, we also attract a lot of energy. When we work with a lot of people, when you know, even as a yoga teacher, you think like there's not a lot going on, like in a yoga class, but there's a lot going on. Like everywhere is a lot going on. You sit at the trains, we accumulate energy in our field, yeah? And it's not only like a ceremonialist and someone that is guiding ceremonies like needs ritual washes. Actually, everyone needs it because it helps us to not only receive the blessings of the plants, but it also helps us to stay in our own energy. So it helps us to actually orientate our intuition, our clear sense, our clear senses, our psychic senses are so much more awake, alert, and attuned to us because we let go of the washes, the energies that we accumulate.
I love that. And I immediately think about the women that are in my world, yes, there are yoga teachers and body workers and ritualists, but there's also lawyers, or like women that work in the office, and it's the same there, right? We pick up on so many things during our day. And what I really love about you saying energetic hygiene.
A spiritual hygiene, I call it.
Spiritual hygiene, yeah. Because I normally call it energetic hygiene, but I think we're talking about the same thing. And what I really love about how you share about this is women often ask me, how do I protect my energy, or how do I close my energy from all these things that I'm sensing? And one of the things that I always respond is that closing your energy, yes, can be supportive for you, maybe during a certain period of your development or your life. And I also noticed that through closing my energy, I was closing myself off from something that I believe is very natural, which is to feel each other, which is to feel life, which is to feel the energies that are around us, right? And especially in the times that we are in, all of humanity is becoming more sensitive and picks up on the things that are around us. So instead of emotional or energetic closing off, I always really stand for energetic or spiritual hygiene, which means keeping your energy open and available, but taking care of whatever you're picking up on by cleansing yourself.
So when we learn to feel without that fear, right? Because it also comes from an overwhelm wanting to close our energy field.
Yes.
And when we actually learn to maneuver, like how I can be in myself and I can perceive your energy, then that's a gift, right? And that learning and that stretch to not get blended all the time. And also the blending is normal, yeah? But if we like to have a wash once a month, like to take care of ourselves, to do these processes, it just helps us because the skin, and this is why washing I feel is so important, the skin is our biggest organ, yeah? And it's like we receive a lot through the skin. Yeah, our biggest sense are the eyes. Take the eyes away, our skin is receiving constantly. And so when we're washing, it's like also creating that energetic vibration of nourishment, of purification. So you are in connection with Gaia, with Mother Earth and her abundant offerings. And that helps us to stay nourished and powerful in our own vibration. And the less we wash, the less we connect with the necessity to purify. Yeah. And it becomes slightly dense. And you can feel that after a while. You can feel that it's becoming a bit uncomfortable, or you're starting to feel sluggish, or you're starting to feel tired, or you're starting to feel like you're not clear anymore, then it's a perfect moment to have a wash. Like this is already like last minute, right? Because we actually accumulate first in the energy, then in the emotions, and then in the physical body. And when our physical body is starting to get irritated, this is kind of like, hey, do your wash now. It's too late.
Beautiful. Yeah. So when you say you work with the ritual washings as spiritual hygiene, what does that look like in your own life? Can you give some examples of what your month or your week then looks like, and how ritual baths are a part of that?
I'm a landowner since 4 years, so I am very blessed to have planted a medicine garden with different herbs and different flowers that I've been collecting all over the planet and bringing seeds home and nourishing them. So I'm constantly surrounded in a vibration that really supports me to stay clear. I do the weeding with my roses or with my other plants. So there is a constant energetic interaction between me and different plants. And I notice different plants would call me. So be like, oh, the rose calling me. Or a very gentle, like sage is calling me. So like while I'm walking on the land, I can already feel like where I'm more in resonance with the plants. And so like during the month, for sure, if I don't guide a ceremony, or if I don't guide like a group container, then I would for sure have one wash. And I like ritualizing the washes, like, you know, with whatever prayer I have to purify myself, so I can like share more abundantly that prayer that I'm currently carrying. Yeah. So like I can use washes for enhancing something. So ritualizing like that prayer, like helping the flowers to amplify and strengthen that prayer. When I hold retreats and ceremonies, what I do is like I do a cleansing wash before I go into the retreat. So my energy field is very, very strong and very clear. So I can sense whatever my clients or brothers and sisters are going through. And then after the retreat is over and everyone that was part of the container left, I do another cleansing wash. And in the way of the Andinian, like the Andes, the traditional way, it's like every person has one specific wash for their life. It never changes. It is a combination between purifying plants and strengthening plants. And this is something I've been studying with my maestra, Emma Cordero. She's a very, very powerful healer. She heals entirely with plants, externally and internally. She's been healing the most severe cases, and I'm like, wow. So she told me that everyone has their own specific wash that never changes in their life. Yeah, and it's individual. Then we can also, you know, just allow ourselves to create washes from ingredients that are cleansing and from ingredients that are nourishing.
Yes.
So before I go into ceremonies, I always have my cleansing wash and my cleansing wash after. So in periods where I'm working a lot and holding a lot of ceremony, I have to take care of my energy in a more focused way through more washes. Also, if I would do a big journey, I always carry herbs. So wherever I am arrived, like I can already like straight do a wash. So I cleanse off like the whole journey. And also when I arrive back. So whenever I am surrounded by lots, like big gatherings of people and retreats or big travels, I always take care of my energy by washing.
Beautiful.
So this is kind of like every month looks different, but I think you get the picture.
Yeah. And what I really love is that you live on a piece of land where you have your medicines fresh. This was also the case when I was in Benin during my initiation. I would say the purification bath was one of the most important ones, but they would also offer me protection baths. They would also offer me baths to call something in. Like there's different types of baths, but I would say the purification one was the main one. It's also still the main one that I love working with, the purification. But then when I'm in a specific process, I can also pick the specific herbs that are in support of that specific process that I am in as well. I wanted to ask you, or first I wanted to also mention to the listener, we don't all have our medicine garden. And I am one of those people that I live in Amsterdam. I live in an apartment, so I don't have a garden at all. And so for me, living in the city, what my medicine plant herb collection looks like is actually dried herbs. So that is also completely fine. If you want to explore working with ritual washings, you can do so with dried herbs as well. So here behind me, if you're watching this episode, you will see my little closet over there. And it's filled with all kinds of different dried herbs that just as Mystery is walking through the garden and she feels, the sage is calling me now. Now the rose is calling me. The same for me. I open my closet and I can feel which jar and which herb or flower is calling me in this moment. Yeah. So we can work with these ways of washings through different ways, depending on where you live, depending on the land or the not land that we have access to. There's different ways to have access to the herbs and the quality and the spirit of the herbs that are working in our support. Yeah,
and something I can offer to the listener as well, if they're interested in receiving a personalized blend, I'm really happy, and that's what I'm doing also in my work as a mentor. Sometimes when we do specific rituals in the Metamorphosis mentorship, I also make them herbal blends and I send them to wherever they are. So they have their own unique personal wash that helps to nourish them throughout big times of transformation and change. And so, we help each other. Like if you don't have a piece of land, like go and order the herbs on the internet, or find like a local witch that you can trust, and she has some of those herbs in
Yes.
the garden. So we can,
Yes.
and you have some of my herbs in your witch cupboard as well,
I have. I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that when you are going to buy the dried herbs, to always make sure that they're either organic or wild picked. So you were mentioning about internal cleanse as well as external cleanse. So the external cleanse being the ritual baths where you wash yourself with the water that has the plants, spirit and plants inside of it. You wash the outside of your body. Can you share also a bit about cleansing the inside of your body?
Yeah. So there are, for example, different plants that help us in cleansing parasites, right? There are different Artemis or lavender family members that help us in a natural way to sustain our gut health, to release any kind of parasitic energies, but also parasites like in terms of when we drink water or we eat food when we're traveling. Yeah. So like it also, the plants really help us to maintain our overall health. And that would be then an internal cleanse. So that's more on the physical note. And then also when we drink a really good herbal tea, like for example, when I collect my roses and I make a rose tea, it helps me to harmonize my interior. So like it keeps me sweet and soft. So we can also really tune into when do we need or ask and consult the wisdom and the power of specific flowers and herbs to like maintain like our emotional health. Like maybe we feel a lot of overwhelm. Yeah. So then the rose would be really nice because it softens. Or when we need nourishment, like the nettle and oat straw, a very, very nourishing herb. It's like almost like drinking breast milk. Yeah. Like a good infusion of oat straw and nettle and a little bit of rose is just like, it just sorts you out and like it brings you back to your heart center, brings you back to yourself. And then also if we're going through really deep layered like emotional grief processes, yeah, like to drink rue tea in small quantities, because the rue is a very, very powerful plant, like all plants are. But the rue can really, really support, like in really peeling away. Like I always find her a little bit like a scalpel, like a little knife that can like cut things away. And if we intentionalize, for example, drinking a rue tea, it can help us to cut away, and by fully feeling, not cut away in terms of by exiling or disassociating, but like really release and let go specific layers or blockages that we're carrying in our body, either energetically or emotionally. So the plants externally are powerful, but also internally are powerful. When we use the plants internally, it's very important to get the quantities right, because on some plants you can't overdose. Like you can have a strong lavender tea and you can have a strong chamomile tea, yeah, but you can't have an overdose really. Yeah, you would just fall asleep and be very calm, which is nice, which is also a natural sleep aid. So if you're tired or you can't sleep and you actually really want to come down, do a really good lavender manzanilla, like chamomile infusion, and it will help you to really like soften. But with some other plants, like for example, Artemisia or Ruda, like the rue plant, we couldn't drink too much because they also have like adverse effects that actually intoxicate. Like because some herbs, before we had all these pharmaceutical, also have been used for abortion processes. Yeah,
Yes.
so when there were a mother that was carrying like an unwanted child, we would have different herbs like to assist that mother to have a natural abortion process. So we have to be careful, like when we work with these plants and when we work with them internally, such as rue, that we don't overdose them.
So, if now the listener is inspired and is like, I would love to start exploring with ritual washings, what would be one that is like really easy or accessible or something to have like a first introduction with which would I would say has a cleansing effect? Because I think the cleansing bath is something that all of us can use, right? So
Yeah.
what would be a simple bath that someone would be able to try out?
I think a very like nice and gentle purification wash would be a combination of rosemary, would be some sage, would be some rose, would be some lavender. This is a very simple 4-ingredient wash. Yeah.
Yes.
Then we can add on, right? Like it's like this is something that's beautiful in our connection that's opening with the plant. You know, maybe someone says, oh, but I really feel inspired to wash myself with chamomile or with jamaica or with perejil, with parsley. Yeah, these are all medicine plants as well that we can put into our wash. But I feel like the ingredients that I would always put like into a purification wash is actually rue, rosemary, sage, lavender, and rose. I think this is like my go-to purification mix.
Like I would say the main herb that I received in my cleansing bath in Benin was hyssop. And hyssop is also this herb that is in the Bible. And I use this also for cleansing in the Bible as well. And I find it also a very deep purification herb that we can wash ourselves. And rue, I love rue. I would say rue is one of my favorite plants. I was also sharing it in last week's episode with Danielle or 2 weeks ago, actually. Rue is just like a love of mine, a deep love that I actually met for the first time when we were together in Brazil with this Argentinian healer where we did the rue yoni steaming with. And it changed me in a very big way. And I have a lot of love for this plant. Is there anything that you would like to share about ritual washings, ritual baths that I didn't ask you about yet?
I think what I find interesting, and this was something that we used to be speaking about as well, is that some traditions use hot bathing. Yeah, they use hot water to prepare the herb. And some traditions use cold. And I remember you were asking me, Mystery, what do you think? Why do some traditions use warm and why do some traditions use cold?
Yes.
And something that I thought about was also like in South America, there are some traditions that use hot water and some traditions not. And I just came up actually with this like logic understanding that when we're in cold environments, like a wash feels much more nourishing when it's warm. Yeah. So like when I'm in the high Andes, all the washes like that, the maestros, the teachers, the healers, the shaman, the medicine people are giving are warm washes. Whereas if I'm in the jungle and it's like 35-degree, then my maestro, he always has cold washes. Yeah. So I feel also the washes are adapting to kind of like the temperature. So if you're feeling like, because I also had a dear brother, he came for a consultation and he's working as a leading facilitator, traveling a lot over the world. And he was saying, Mystery, I need your help. Like I need washes, but I don't like warm water, like does it have to be a warm wash? And I'm just like, what, you don't like warm water? And he only showers cold. And I said, well, make the wash, let it cool out, because I do feel that the pouring of the hot water creates something with the herbs that they release a little bit more of their goodness, right? This is why we boil our tea in a hot way. But we can also put the water and let it soak for a long night, which is a different way of preparing. So if you're feeling inspired to like experiment with like ritual wash, you can either, maybe this is something we should share actually, how to prepare it, right? Like you have all these herbs. One way would be to prepare it by boiling a big pot of water. You put the herbs in, you stir it with your intentions. You let it sit for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to like really let the goodness to be absorbed. And then you cool it down with some cold water. So it's like a good and nice temperature. And it's sometimes called ritual bathing. Yeah. But it's actually always a wash. So we don't put it in our bathtub and like sink in there. Yeah. Because what we're actually doing is like we're washing energy. So we don't want to lie in them. So it's really actually like a ritual shower. Yeah. So
also that depends on the tradition, because in Benin, they do it like this as well. It's a washing where you pour the water over yourself. But in hoodoo, which is the African American voodoo, the hoodoo tradition, they will also have that option to lay in your bathtub with the herbs. And then afterwards, when you feel it's completed, you rinse yourself with water. So I never do this one because I agree with you. I really love for the herbs to dry on my skin, for the water to dry on my skin, and to really let my body, feel the power of the plant. So I never do that. But there are traditions where they actually would lay in the tub.
I mean, for me, it makes sense if I would have like a nourishing flower bath. Like, for example, when I would only roses, lavender, something that charged me, when I would just want to take like a nourishing bath, I would love to put those in there.
But not a cleansing bath.
If I wanted a purification one, then I wouldn't feel comfortable actually applying.
Me neither. No.
It's like that there are many ways of doing it, like as a cold infusion, as a hot infusion, to be standing on the earth, to be lying in the bathtub, or to be standing in your shower and cleansing yourself. So it really depends on the intuition. And there is like, the best invitation, like whatever feels the most nourishing way for you and your intuition. There's so many ways all over the globe. Trust your own way.
True. There's one more thing I would like to add to the hot and cold water washings. I can also see in Benin, they have access to so many fresh plants, right? So where they will not use boiling water, not even to prepare it. But what they do is they prepare it the day before and let it sit all night. And what they do, they crush it with their hands. So like how we used to wash our clothes in the past, right? They're like crushing it and like squeezing the plant so the juice comes out. And then they let the fresh plants sit all over the night to take your bath in the morning, first thing in the morning before everybody else is awake. And what I can see also of one reason of using the hot water with the dry herbs is because I can see that the power of the plant comes out much better when we put the hot water on the dried herbs. So that for me is one other reason choosing between hot and cold, because the cold bath and the fresh plants, the juices are in there still. So it's much easier for those juices to come out of the plant and into the water. Whereas with the dried herbs, it needs the support of the hot water for the power to actually come out. Beautiful. There is so much to share about this, huh? And I can't wait until I have my house with a garden and I can take my washings in the garden, because now I'm doing them in the shower and then I'm air drying because I don't want to rinse it off, but air drying it so that the power of the plant can stay with me and on me. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. I am really, really passionate about the ritual washings. And I would like to know, Mystery, if the listener is curious about you and your work, where can they find you? Or if they want to reach out for a personalized recipe, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my Instagram account, Mystery Anaha, or send me an email at medicineoflove@protonmail.com.
Yes, amazing. So we will make sure to link all of that below. I know that you also sell your apothecary medicines. So if anyone feels curious about that, make sure to message Mystery about that as well. So thank you once again, and I would love to see you soon, love.
Yeah, and if the listener has any more questions or feels really inspired also about receiving a ritual wash, like all my retreats are opened with a ritual wash. And so if you feel like you would like to dive a little bit deeper into the native wisdom and also into the work with ceremony and ritual in person, you can find my upcoming offerings online. I'd love to be in contact.
Yeah, when is your first upcoming retreat? It might also be good to know for the listeners, because I know you have one coming up.
Yeah, I have, now 1 and 2 weeks. That might be a bit short notice because we're starting our dietary requirements actually today.
Yes.
But I have a women's retreat coming up from the 19th to the 24th. It's called Medicine Womb, Portal of Deep Remembrance. So it's
September,
a 6-day long journey of September, over the autumn equinox.
Yes,
and then
beautiful.
We also have a weekend retreat in October from the 20th to the 22nd. where we're going to have 2 sittings with the beautiful grandmother medicine and, of course, a very beautiful ritual wash as well.
Amazing. We will make sure to link everything below this episode so that you can find Mystery and her upcoming offers and receive her beautiful medicine. All right, love, I thank you so much, and I wish all of you a beautiful day. Did you receive any inspiration, motivation, or powerful breakthroughs by listening to this episode? Then please share this episode by taking a screenshot and tagging me in your stories at nicole.nyima.costerus. I would love to celebrate you, share you in my stories, and it would mean so much to have my work reach more powerful, passionate women like you. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you next week.